to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, this month's school recognition is the Zebulon Magnet Middle School. And bear with me, I want to read about our winners, or the ones we're honoring, put it that way. The student is Elijah Easley in the 6th grade, and says Elijah is a high-achieving student who works hard and attempts everything you give him. He has been a leader this school year, participating during class discussions and offering help to students who need it. He works well with others and has a positive attitude every day. He is very involved within the school as a member of Odyssey of the Mind and Battle of the Books. Elijah is also involved within his community as a student activist and recently taking a CPR class. So let's congratulate Elijah. Okay. Tyra Keat is a 6th grade science and social studies teacher. Ms. Keat is sunshine in the human form. Her positive energy and warm demeanor can be felt in her classroom and throughout the school. She is a hardworking, dedicated teacher who seeks creative ways to pique students' interest through her content. She works diligently to build and maintain relationships with students and their families. These relationships lay the foundation for her to support, challenge, and engage her students academically. She serves as a collaborative leader within her grade level instructional team. Most admirably, her connections with students inspire them to expand their knowledge and explore their creative interest and persist through challenges. Ms. Keat is an invaluable asset to our school family. And once again, look forward to the day when they can come in here and receive these awards, but I appreciate very much what they bring to our community. Okay, next I have a proclamation. If you'll bear with me, I'll read this. Excuse me. Proclamation, April School Library Month. Whereas the school library is essential to effective education for an informational-based society, and whereas by supporting the goals of Wake County Schools and by serving all students and teachers, this program is an integral part of the instructional process, kindergarten through grade 12. And whereas the school library offers an environmental conductive to reading and learning, critical thinking, critical expression, investigation, and research, professional growth, and curriculum development and enhancement. And whereas the school libraries in the town of Zebulon are enriched by its dedicated staff, volunteers, and gifts. Now therefore, I, Robert S. Matheny, Mayor, and the Zebulon Board of Commissioners hereby proclaim that the town of Zebulon joins with towns across the nation in declaring April School Library Month, and do further proclaim that students and other citizens of the town of Zebulon are encouraged to visit the school libraries in each of our schools to partake of the special programs planned for the month-long celebration and to familiarize themselves with the services always available. So I will entertain a motion.
I move to accept the proclamation.
Second. Excuse me, motion made and second. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, thank you. All righty. Public comment?
We didn't have any comments submitted.
All right, consent agenda.
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Old business. Ordinance 2021-60 building maintenance regulations.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, the first of the agenda items is a case that you heard at the joint public hearing regarding text amendments specifically to Chapter 95 as they pertain to downtown building code regulations. This is a staff-driven request, and the intent is to, one, require vacant property owners to install some sort of a display-type feature within their windows to minimize the effect of the building being vacant, and two, improve the conditions on the exterior of the building with minimum requirements to maintain the structure. As you may recall, these would be specific to the downtown core as well as the downtown periphery district as written. And it would be limited to non-residential structures. So structures similar to this. Each of these, while they're undergoing some level of restoration or renovation or have been used for storage, these are buildings that would be affected by these regulations in terms of the display requirement. Same thing with some of the maintenance structures. The building on the right, you see how they have paper on it. This would also require them to have some sort of display. Additionally, some of the approvals that were made in the past for bricking up windows, such as the building on the left, would no longer, moving forward, be able to be permissible. Additionally, it addresses some of the maintenance regulations. As an example, the building on the left, we had several code enforcement situations, and as we were reviewing the regulations in pertain to the concerns that the business community had downtown regarding the condition of this building, we realized at that point in time we were a little limited on what we could do. These regulations would address that as well. Specifically, broken windows, they were not listed as a violation previously. Fortunately, in all these situations, we were able to proactively work with the building owner in order to bring this building into more of a compliant situation. The concerns primarily were the broken windows, damaged and dirty awnings, damaged bricks. In one situation, it allowed for immediate safety and health issue if the bricks were to fall. And some of them did fall at various stages of one of the renovations. Repairing and cleaning the signs. We do have regulations now that prohibit signage on vacant buildings. This would take it a step further for occupied buildings to make sure that they're maintained in a workmanlike or compliance. Additionally, working with business owners to have those window displays as opposed to coverings. As you can recall, there's several different options to accomplish this. Working with non-for-profit groups such as ZDAC or Preservation Zebulon or the local school system could create display windows such as this. We had a great example this past winter with the downtown window display competition. Additionally, some of the building owners took it as a proactive approach, specifically Dallas Pierce. When he purchased the Barron's building, he put in Christmas decorations inside to help still maintain that sense of vibrancy, even though the building was no longer there. On the other hand, buildings can paint window displays, not just for Christmas, but all the other holidays or different events. They can also work with different groups that want to get a message. Right now, with COVID-19 going on and still having concerns, it could be messages to remind folks to wash their hands and stay 6 feet apart and wear masks. It could also be messages of hope, of revitalization of downtown. With the North Carolina Main Street program going on, there's a lot of opportunities to collaborate with that group as well as the building owners to put in different displays. The other, and I found out right before the last meeting that they already did this, is some of these buildings are under renovation. Showing what they could look like once they're completed the renovation helps to create that sense of excitement. I had put this slide together, and the day of the meeting I went out there and noticed the picture on the left, they already did that. They realized that that is something that not only helps to create the excitement for the building, but also could be a marketing tool for potential occupants as well. At the joint public hearing, there were several modifications that were suggested by the planning board and to correct the language. So the language that's presented tonight is amended as discussed at that meeting. But in short, it required the minimum building maintenance for brick windows, awnings, signage to be maintained in an appropriate manner. Additionally, it would require the vacant buildings have some sort of display feature in the front. As I mentioned last time, this is critical for us to be able to get this right. Our downtown is the heart and soul of the community, even to the point of several years ago, Southern Business and Development magazine indicated that when site searching the South, make sure you inspect the community's downtown first. These are not necessarily buildings that are going to, or businesses that are going to locate downtown, but these are folks, industrial, major manufacturing, major employment centers are looking to see, okay, what is that sense of vibrancy in downtown? Because they see that as an indicator of the quality of life for the community. And as the planner, Ed McMahon, stated, a community's image is fundamental to its economic well-being. At the March 8th planning board meeting, the planning board did unanimously recommend approval of the proposed request as amended, and therefore staff can recommend approval as well. And we have provided a sample motion for your convenience tonight. And I am available if you have any questions.
Questions?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, it's fine for a business to be completely boarded up as long as they slap a poster on the front of the building?
Not necessarily.
I mean, that's what Dallas Pierce has done, and it doesn't look classy.
I 100% agree. What it would require is them, or the building owners or business owners, to submit a plan to work with staff to make sure that those displays are appropriate. Obviously, we would not want anything that would create controversy or issues within the town. But in that type of situation, we work effectively with them to figure out, okay, what time period is this going to be up? And more so, what is being done to take those boards down? That includes installation of storefronts, and figure out an appropriate timeline to make sure that becomes reality as opposed to it just being placed up there indefinitely.
Okay, so with the passage of this ordinance, you will be able to go back and have those conversations
That is correct.
with existing building owners that have boarded up storefronts?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have a question along that same line. If it is under construction, sometimes it may be necessary to cover the front to keep people from going in, you know, that sort of thing. And I agree with what Shannon's asking the question about. We don't want somebody just to board it up and say, oh, okay, now I don't have to worry about it. But during the course of construction, it can be a different standard. So is that allowed?
Correct. The regulations require the building owner to submit a plan to the staff. That plan is going to be site-specific based on the nature and the intensity of, in this case, construction, or if it's just a vacant building, maybe having it circulate a new display every 60, 90 days, depending upon those situations.
Okay.
So in a situation where a building is boarded up, we would be able to implement very specific timelines on what needs to occur when.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Okay, what's your pleasure?
I recommend approving ordinance 2021-60 for the proposed text amendments to Chapter 95 as amended by the Planning Board, finding they are consistent with Vision 2030 strategic plan and other applicable plans adopted by the town of Zebulon.
Second.
Motion made and second. Other comments or discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. 2021-61, 1513 north of Rendell.
Okay, this is the first of the rezoning requests tonight. The next three requests are actually corrections to the Unified Development Ordinances zoning map. As you recall, when the Unified Development Ordinance was adopted, it changed the classifications of a lot of zoning districts. In all the situations that we could, we made sure that we transferred them to the closest corresponding zoning classification. However, due to a technical glitch regarding the GIS software that we had at that time, there was a selection of parcels that were classified. There was one across the street from this first case, and you heard another one on East Gannon Road earlier this year to reclassify that. This one specifically is 1513 North Arundel, better known as the Bojangles. It was rezoned, unfortunately, to light industrial. The staff is recommending rezoning to heavy commercial, which is the use that is most consistent with the previous zoning classification. As noted previously, it is 1.32 acres located on Arundel. This is an aerial photo. And this is the existing zoning map. You may note that pretty much everything around it, with the exception of the parcel to the south, which is also up for rezoning tonight, is zoned heavy commercial. And it had been duly notified in terms of postage in paper of general circulation, signage on site, as well as mailing to all property owners within 150 feet of the subject boundaries. More photos. At the March 8th meeting, the planning board did unanimously recommend rezoning of this request as submitted, finding that was consistent with the applicable standards. And I do have a sample motion available for you tonight. I am also available if you have any questions for this one.
Questions? All right. You have a motion?
Let's go make a motion.
Hereby
I recommend-
recommend the approval of ordinance 2021-61 for the purpose of rezoning for 1513 North Arundel Avenue, light industrial to heavy commercial, finding that the proposed request is consistent to the conditions in section 2.2.24J of the UDO, the Vision 2030 Strategic Plan, and other applicable plans adopted by the town of Zebulon.
I second.
Motion made, second. Other comments or discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. 2021-62, 49 Green Pace Road.
Okay, this is essentially the exact same situation to the parcel to the south. Originally it was zoned heavy business. Unfortunately, when the UDO zoning map was approved, it was rezoned to light industrial. This is part of a larger tract. The specific section that would be rezoned is the 1.31 acres that fronts on Arundel, immediately south of the Bojangles, but it is part of 49 Green Pace Road, which is a much larger tract. At the time of the adoption of the UDO, this was an independent parcel of record. It had since been recombined with the rest of the BB&T parcels. That's why it has a different zoning than the rest of the site. As I noted, it's a very large parcel, but the specific location is just this spot right here is the item of question tonight. It had been fully noted through the paper of general circulation as well as posting on site. The site does contain an access drive which goes into the BB&T data processing center. At the March 8th meeting, the planning board also unanimously recommended approval as submitted, finding that it met the standards of 2.2.24J of the UDO. I also provided a sample motion for this one as well. I apologize, it's a little lengthy because it is specific to indicate specifically this segment to bring in compliance with the rest of the site. I am available if you have any questions on this one.
Question? Motion?
I hereby move to approve ordinance 2021-62 for the approval of the proposed rezoning from light industrial to heavy commercial for the section of 49 Green Pace Road that fronts on Arundel Avenue as indicated in the staff report at their March 8th, 2021 meeting, finding that the proposed request is consistent with the conditions of section 2.2.24.j of the UDO, the Vision 2030 Strategic Plan, and other applicable plans adopted by the town of Zebulon.
I second.
Motion made and second. Other comments or discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. All right, 2021-63, 213 Moss Road.
Okay, this is the last of the cleanup rezonings. It is located at 213 Moss Road. This one was specifically requested to be rezoned several years ago from residential to heavy business and was successful in that rezoning application. The tax records indicate that it is a commercial use, specific that was going to be, has an auto repair activity that occurs on the site. Staff did recommend a rezoning to heavy commercial, which is the closest comparable use to the heavy business use that it was. However, it was rezoned accidentally from HB to R2 residential, rendering the existing activities not in compliance with the zoning code. Once again, this is a staff-driven request. This is the location of the site in relation to the neighboring roads. It is 1.27 acres. You can see it here. Specifically, the commercial activity is located on the front. It does have a dwelling unit on the back. Most of the surrounding uses are R2. However, the site across the street is currently zoned HC heavy commercial. And once again, this was noted for the joint public hearing in accordance with all the applicable state statute requirements, as well as the local ordinance requirements. The planning board voted 3-1 at their March 8th meeting to actually rezone this from R2 to NC neighborhood commercial, noting that that may be a more appropriate zoning classification. However, the activity that occurs on the site, as indicated in the previous zoning request that the property owner submitted some years ago, would not be in compliance with the NC zoning classification for the neighborhood commercial zoning classification. However, the motion did pass 3-1 from the planning board to recommend rezoning it from R2 to NC. Staff does still recommend rezoning it to HC heavy commercial, as that is the closest compliant zoning classification that the property owner requested several years ago. And I have a motion available on the screen for your use, and I am available if you have any questions.
All right, so what's the difference between neighborhood commercial and heavy commercial then?
Neighborhood commercial is more along the lines of corner grocery stores, more light activity, as opposed to an auto repair facility, as an example.
And so prior to the UDO, it was zoned where it was inside compliance as heavy business?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, then I move to approve ordinance 2021-63 for the request to rezone 213 Moss Road from R2 to heavy commercial, finding that the proposed request is consistent with the conditions of sections 2.2.24.j of the Unified Development Ordinance, the Vision 2030 Strategic Plan, and any other applicable plans adopted by the town of Zebulon.
Second.
Motion made and second. Is that the old, what was the welding shop over there?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Was that the welding shop that was over there?
I believe that may be part of it, yes.
It was, yeah. I think it was Doug Cook's.
Years ago. I thought that was what that building was, but I wanted to be sure. Okay, other comments or discussion? All in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you. All right, 2021-64 Zebulon Outdoor Storage.
Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. CZ 2026 Zebulon Outdoor Storage. As you recall, this site was before you at the March 8th joint public hearing. The applicant's John Oglesby. The owner is Zebulon Outdoor Storage. The property address is 1817 Old US 264 Highway. The size of the parcel is about 15 acres. The existing zoning is heavy industrial, and then the proposed zoning is heavy industrial conditional district. The subject site outlined in red, there is a Duke Energy site established to the adjacent east. The property to the adjacent west is vacant. You have the U.S. Foods facility across the street to the south. Subject site is currently vacant. You have heavy industrial zoning to the adjacent east and to the adjacent west, light industrial across the street to the south. On the March 8th joint public hearing, as I stated, this was heard. The planning board made a motion that they denied the request based on it did not meet standards 2 and 4 of the Unified Development Ordinance. Since then, later on that week, staff met with the applicant and we worked on ways on how the site could conform to standards 2 and 4, and the applicant amended conditions to the conditional zoning request. Some of those conditions were increasing landscaping along the private drive that would screen the stored vehicles from the right-of-way, worked on increasing the buffers along US 264 and Old US 264 Highway, extending the private drive deeper into the site from 200 to 300 feet. And then more importantly, the use of the gravel was, there was a condition made that instead of just being gravel on the site, there was going to be a geogrid, which would be about 6 to 8 inches in depth. The gravel would be stored in the geogrid, and then on top of that, there'd be an additional 2 inches of gravel. And that met staff's concerns of the gravel spreading throughout the right-of-way and the private drive, as well as possible erosion issues. These are the 5 standards on whether this conditional zoning is in compliance with code. It's whether the proposed conditional rezoning advances the public health, safety, or welfare. Number 2, whether the extent to which the proposed conditional rezoning is appropriate for its proposed location and is consistent with the purposes, goals, objectives, policies of the town's adopted policy guidance. Number 3, whether an approval of the conditional rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest. Number 4, whether and the extent to which the concept plan associated with the conditional rezoning is consistent with this ordinance. And the final standard is any factors as the Board of Commissioners may determine to be relevant. And this is a sample motion if you decide to approve this conditional zoning request. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Questions from the board?
So the crushed stone that's going to be used and the stone that's going to be in the geogrid, that, from my understanding of the material I was given, is now considered to be an impermeable layer?
Well, it'll be treated as pervious. So condition number 2 kind of talks to that stormwater management, that whether it's considered impervious or pervious, that the site's going to be designed to a stormwater management standard that would recognize fully impermeable. So it would have to meet the stormwater control measures.
Okay, so when we talk about requiring weed maintenance and things like that, with what this is saying here, just treating it as being fully impermeable, then any herbicides sprayed on that area would not have there's not going to be a concern of it leaching down into, the ground and potentially any water systems?
As far as pesticides, I don't know why they would spray
No, herbicides.
herbicides. I can't speak to herbicides on being sprayed on the gravel.
For weed control? Okay.
Is that it, Shannon?
Yeah.
I hereby recommend approval of ordinance 2021-64 for the amended conditional zoning for 1817 Old US 264 Highway, finding that the proposed request is consistent with the conditions of section 2.2.6.k of the UDO, the Vision 2030 Strategic Plan, and other applicable plans adopted by the town of Zebulon.
Second.
I had one more question. The applicant and staff both agree with all of these conditions, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. After this meeting, we have an attachment that the applicant will sign and staff will sign that we both agree to the conditions.
And I
they
thought that was
proposed.
the case, I just wanted to be real clear that that was it. And I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to ask. Okay, other questions or comments? All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. You may.
I'm Clyde Gold, and on behalf of Ashley Terrazas, my partner who made the presentation at your meeting last month, I wanted to report the birth of a very healthy, nearly 9-pound baby boy, and Ashley and her family are doing just fine. And so I wanted to thank you for your attention and your assistance with this on Ashley's behalf.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. Okay. Utility merger agreement. Joe?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This is largely going to be a repeat from what you saw and heard at your work session last month, but I've embellished the presentation with some of the questions that you asked. Feel free, if I don't get to those questions, if I forget them, or if you think of a new question, feel free to interrupt and we can seek to answer the question at that time. So again, the outline of the presentation is to give you a review of the merger history, as well as the details of the second amendment to that merger agreement. So as far as the merger history, the merger agreement, the town of Zebulon, like other towns within Wake County, merged their utility systems with the city of Raleigh, and as with those other towns, the town of Zebulon entered into a merger agreement. And the details of this, for those who are interested in following at home, are in the staff report that's online. The first amendment to that agreement the discussions for that occurred around 2009. There was a Great Recession. The housing market tanked, and so there was not many housing sales, so there was not many people moving into houses, so there was not many customers. So Zebulon, Wendell, and I believe Knightdale revised their original merger agreements and entered into a First Amendment. The proposal that you have before you tonight is the Second Amendment to that merger. The First Amendment included some sellback of sewer, and again, the details of the sellback are included in your staff report. As far as the Second Amendment that's before you tonight, there's a proposal that the town sell back water, in this case 250,000 or 0.25 million gallons a day of water.
Sewer.
Thank you. That's the sewer. The water is 100,000 gallons or 0.1 million gallons a day. There'll be a transfer of cash. The town of Zebulon, before the general statutes changed, collected nearly $500,000 in developer impact fees, and so that cash will be transferred to the city of Raleigh. There's some projects that were included in the the merger agreement, as well as the First Amendment, that had been scrubbed. Scrubbed meaning a couple of things. Some of the projects were completed and the scopes of those projects were reduced, and so the cost of those projects were less than what was originally listed in either the merger agreement or the First Amendment. The other type of scrubbed project is if the town of Zebulon is selling back the need for capacity. One of the projects to deliver that capacity is a parallel line along NC 97. And so if the town of Zebulon sells the need for the capacity back, then that project goes away as well. So those are a couple of types of scrubbed projects. And then the other thing I did not elaborate well on last time is there will be a clear transfer of property. So most specifically and largely is the transfer of property around Little River Park. So you may recall if you were on the board or even just a citizen at the time, there was a lot of confusion when the dam broke about who owned the property. So the only property that the town of Zebulon technically owned was a small portion of what was on the west bank of Little River. This would give access to the east bank and would give access to that property that was the water treatment plant, with the exception of the part of the treatment plant that is inside the fence line. So there's property transfer there. There's also a property transfer for when I think it's Corridor 6 on your Greenway Master Plan, sometimes affectionately known as the Catwalk, but also a Greenway connection between Sidney Creek and Five County Stadium. There'll be an easement access across the sewer treatment plant site for the installation of those two greenways. So again, that's just wanted to make sure I elaborated on that because I wasn't very clear on that last time, that this amendment includes property transfer. When we showed this map to you last time, these bottom lines, they showed the existing, and then to the right of this FY21 hash mark, it showed the projected. We showed a relatively stable growth. We went in just to, I guess, play devil's advocate, put in a very aggressive growth rate. So this reflects a 7.5% annual growth rate. I think that's unrealistic and unsustainable. Your transportation system will probably collapse before it supports something like this unless you got very aggressive in your transportation system. But anyway, we wanted to show this just so you could get a feel for what a 7.5% growth rate looks like in comparison with the amount of capacity or the compounded capacity that's being afforded to you in the merger agreement, the First Amendment, and now the Second Amendment. Question was raised about comparisons with Wake Forest, about how quickly Wake Forest has grown. Wake Forest is a little over 40,000 people right now, and they are using a little over 3 million gallons of water. So right now, FY21, you have a little over 3 million gallons of water available. So as your planning director, like Clark said at the work session, you could grow to the size of Wake Forest overnight, even though you can't and even though we would recommend it. So you've got sufficient capacity to meet a similar type of population. Similar adjustments made on the sewer side. I don't remember that there was any specific questions or comments raised on this, but again, the adjustments that we made on the water side, we made on the sewer side, just to give you an evaluation tool. One of the things that we adjusted a little bit is last time we showed you what the service area would be by, or what it is right now. So this dark blue line, that is your corporate limits, and this darker yellow line is your ETJ. And so with the amount of capacity that you've got right now with 2020, you not only can serve everything within your ETJ, but this additional blue area as well. If you were to sell back the water, this is an equivalent area of what you could not develop. By 2030, given that the water and the sewer allocation continues to compound on an annual basis, you could serve your entire urban service area. So urban service area, that is the boundaries that have been predetermined by all the municipalities. So in our case, Wendell and Rollsville, about what's the limit of the boundaries of their growth. So by 2030, you not only could provide enough water for your urban service area, you could actually get out of it. You could get into the adjacent county here. The agreement with the City of Raleigh currently does not allow that because the City of Raleigh has made the decision not to extend water lines beyond their service area. But right now, you would have the capacity to go beyond the utility service area. I'm going to pause because I'm sensing that there might be a question.
On slide 76, could you go back to that one, the
Sure.
one that has the graph? Okay, so what I'm seeing is the actual rates are peak sewer rates. Is there, do you have a graph that shows what this will look like when we sell back the capacity as compared to, that top line is what we currently have? And then we have what the peak is and what our actual flow is per day.
Okay.
Do you understand my question?
I'm going to try. If I get
Okay.
it wrong, just feel free to repeat. So these bottom lines, so let's go to this part of the graph right here. These bottom lines are actual sewer use.
Right.
Okay. To the right of FY21, which is about this hash mark, that's projections at a 7.5% annual growth rate expected sewer use. Those are not affected by the 0.25 million gallons a day sellback. The 0.25 million gallon a day sellback is included in this line up here.
That's what the green line is with the
Correct.
sellback? Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so you have a couple of closeout scenarios. One is if you sell the capacity and you transfer the cash, you can close out now. You will have paid off the debt. The First Amendment, as it is right now, which includes that water line along NC 97, the closeout right now would be January 2023. The City of Raleigh has offered, with this Second Amendment, to scrub that NC 97 project, thinking that it won't be needed because you will be selling back capacity. So you won't need that line. So a question that was raised last time, and I will do my best to explain this, is when will they know that we will reach capacity? And a question was specifically asked, can we get a sense of how full that pipe is on 97? And I mean no pun when I say this, but the way water supply works, it's very fluid, it's very dynamic, okay? And so there's a couple of water lines that are coming in to the town, and they feed into a water tower, and the water tower goes up and down. And the way that the engineers get a sense of whether they're reaching capacity is they're looking at two things. The first thing they're looking at is they're looking at how quickly that water tank fluctuates, how much they're having to refill it, and how often they're having to refill it. And the second thing they look at is they look at the quality of the water in the system. If there is not a big demand on the water, then the water sits and it gets stagnant and the quality starts to break down. So what they're doing is they're monitoring what kind of fluctuation they see in the tank, and they're monitoring what kind of water quality they see within the system. And right now, they can't answer when that parallel line will be needed. Now, they'll take another evaluation, and they'll have to make a call for the upcoming budget in October of this year. So October would be the earliest we could know. I can't read the tea leaves on saying one way or the other. If I had to guess, it's probably a little bit less likely than likely, but October is the time frame where they would make the call on whether, if you don't sell back the capacity, that line's got to go in and you have to pay for it. So I know that was complicated, that it brought up a lot of questions last time, so I'll pause to see if there's any questions.
But didn't you just say that if we take the first option, they're going to scrub that?
That's exactly right.
So they're not going to build it if we close out the merger now, but they will build it even though it sounds like the capacity will not be there to use it if we don't.
Yeah, in essence, and I think I'm answering your question, but again, if I'm not, just feel free to circle back. In essence, what they're saying is they are taking it on themselves that if we sell back water now, that project that was only put in there to meet a future capacity, if that capacity gets scrubbed, so does the project. And when the day comes when that project comes in, but we've already closed out, then like they do with other parts of the system, they'll spread the cost of that system across all the towns, including the city of Raleigh, to pay for it. So that's what their offer is.
Okay.
When we bought the water, and I don't remember sewer, but I think it was like $4 a gallon. Does that sound right?
The sewer, well, the value that we're getting now is $8 for the sewer, $8.62, I want to say, a gallon. And for the water, it's $4.44.
Yeah, it was $4 something. I couldn't remember sewer, but that was what the original contract purchase price
Right.
was. I know that I served on the WUTAT, as you may recall, well, you weren't here, but some years ago, and the projection, and now they've changed that projection, but the projection at that time was that water value would go up to about $15 a gallon. Do you know what it is today?
I don't.
Okay.
Other questions?
The pipe replacements scheduling, would the buyback affect that? Would it speed it up, or it just remains the same?
Try your question one more time. Maybe you have to repeat it.
Their plans to do maintenance as far as pipes are concerned.
Right.
With us buying, selling it back, would that affect that at all?
Okay, I think what you're asking is the sellback affect their regular maintenance of, or even upgrades of pipes? No, it won't.
It won't, okay.
Other questions or comments? All right, I'm going to keep rolling. So here's the discussion before you. You have an option. You have several options, actually, as with anything that comes before you. You can approve what's been brought before you. In this case, you approve the Second Amendment to the Zebulon-Raleigh Utility Merger Agreement. If you do that, then it will go to the City of Raleigh City Council, and they'll consider it. And if they adopt that, then there'll be an adopted Second Amendment. Another option you've got is you deny the proposal, and you just continue under the conditions that you've got listed right now under the First Amendment. I know this is a very big issue. It's a complex issue. I can tell you from staff, it's a very complex issue. If you need more time, you want staff to come back with some more information, just table the issue for more information, direct us specifically on what you're interested in, or buy some time to think on it. Fourth option is to modify the proposal, send it back to the City of Raleigh for them to consider what your proposed modifications are. So those are your four options. Stand available to answer any other questions you've got.
Could you go back to the previous one? I want to be sure I understand sell capacity, transfer cash, we go ahead now. I get that. And the First Amendment, leaving it as is, would be January of 23, so we'd be looking a little over a year and a half. And keep capacity in cash, April 22, no capacity project. I think I missed what you were trying to say there.
Okay, so, and I don't know that they're going to offer this, but let's just say that they're willing to keep that capacity project off the payback meaning that North
That pipe.
Carolina.
Pipeline.
Yeah, that pipeline, okay?
All right, now, we were supposed to be paying a percentage of that line that brought it over to Wendell Boulevard, and Wendell was paying a percentage. Now, Wendell has gone ahead and paid out.
Correct.
They hit that. Would we still be responsible for a portion of that line if we didn't do anything?
No, that's already taken into account with this. So if you close out, whenever you close out, that's already in the mix.
No, I'm not proposing this, Joe, I just want to understand it. If we didn't close out right
Okay.
now, would we still be responsible for part of that line if they built it coming across? I can't remember the name of the road, but it comes across from, comes from Wendell Falls back over, Pool Road back over to Wendell
Yeah,
Boulevard.
I think the project you're referring to is Martin Pool, and there's
There you go,
that
Martin Road.
line. It's so complex. It's a couple of phases. One is that Martin Pool area, and one is along Highway 97. Wendell and Zebulon have proportional shares, different proportional shares of each phase.
Right.
Okay? The phase that I think you're talking about is already incorporated, and it's in the payment formula. So we're already paying on that, and we'll pay for that completion.
Either way.
Either way.
And weren't we like 20 or 30% of that cost?
I'd want to go back and look at the.
It's
merger.
not the end of the world. I mean, it's some percentage like that. Wendell was carrying the other burden. I wanted to understand that.
Yeah,
That's all.
it is a percentage. I want to say it might have even been 40%, but Wendell had, on that phase, had the majority share on that.
Yeah, because they actually had water sales all the way past Lizard Lip.
Yeah.
And then we pick up at Pitty Pat.
Right.
And come forward with that. Okay. I just wanted to be clear with that, and I didn't understand that last thing there, so. Okay. Other questions? All right, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion to approve the Second Amendment to the Zebulon-Raleigh Utility Merger Agreement.
Okay? Second. Got 2 seconds? Other comments or discussion? All in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Been a long road, Joe. All right. Planning, TA 2021-02, 160D.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I promised Joe that I would not go into a full history of planning, so I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. Tonight is actually kind of a precursor, introduction to 160D. For many years now, the state of North Carolina has been operating under 160A for municipalities and 153A for counties. 160D was created specifically to combine these two statutes to have the same set of regulations when it came to land use decisions, whether you're within a municipality or a county. The combined statutes really took the best of both worlds to create a kind of a happy compromise. In certain situations, the town requirements took precedence. In some situations, the county regulation took precedence. The majority of the regulations, as it pertains to our text amendments, which were provided to you and will be up for a joint public hearing next week, really deal specifically with definitions and reference updates. Part of the reason for this is when we had our Unified Development Ordinance written, it was written by a consultant that also served as the legislative chair for the North Carolina chapter of the American Planning Association. He was really in-depth understanding of what 160D was going to require, and to the best of his capabilities, he implemented as much as legally possible at that time into our Unified Development Ordinance, essentially doing a lot of homework for us. A lot of municipalities have actually had to hire outside consultants because it was a pretty profound shift for a lot of that. The other regulations really deal more with operational capacities when it comes to staff. As you may have noticed, The motions, sample motions that are provided have become kind of lengthy, and they reference terms like consistency statement, as well as referencing the applicable plans that were adopted. These are actually now regulations, requirements in accordance with 160D. Mead also tonight mentioned that tomorrow we're going to meet with the applicant for the conditional rezoning to sign a condition statement. This too is a requirement. In some situations, it's not specific if the staff has to sign it, but does require that the approved list of conditions is signed by the applicant to prevent any concern or misunderstanding of what those regulations really say. Kind of as a little bit of background, originally this was first introduced by the North Carolina Home Builders Association because the regulations were different. But very quickly, it was handed off to the North Carolina Bar Association. The home builders, obviously, they have a particular agenda for certain things. But in this situation, they wanted to make sure that the process was simplified across municipalities. And they realized that the North Carolina Bar Association could be a nonpartisan group that'd be able to craft the regulations and combine the two different sets of statutes to best address the needs of both the counties and the municipalities, as well as serving the individual developers, home builders associations, and such. Much to our surprise, this became effective last June. Nobody was anticipating that. It wasn't supposed to become effective for a while later, but it was included as one of the COVID relief bills that the governor signed. In most situations, well, to the best of my knowledge, in all situations, this occurred without prior heads up to the municipalities. We learned through the school government that this had occurred, and we then told some of our neighboring municipalities who were equally surprised that it occurred. But one of the things that regulation did was it gave until July 1st of this year to make the necessary regulation changes within our regulatory documents, in our case specifically our Unified Development Ordinance. So that is why it's coming before you as a text amendment for both the Code of Ordinance sections as well as our Unified Development Ordinance sections. Overall, as you're going through this, you may find that it does not have a significant regulatory effect on a regulation. Most of it, as I noted, is statutory, but there are some definition requirements, and those in most situations are not my words, but they're coming straight out of this book. It's fascinating reading if anybody wants to borrow it, by the way. But overall, it's the majority of the changes that are going to occur from the way we're operating right now is more as an administrative nature. But looking forward, we do feel that these text amendments best suit the requirements of 160D, and it should be noted that these are statutory requirements as opposed to staff-driven requirements. And I am available if you have any questions regarding the draft regulations. You should have also received a copy of the full 160D regulations as well.
So I have a question in regards to 3.3.C under the quasi-judicial public hearings heading, number 2.
Okay, it was, you were saying section,
It's under the quasi-judicial public hearings, 3.3.3.7.C, and then it's number 2.
Okay.
Okay, so it refers to parties with standing, and that is different than what has been removed, saying any party in attendance. So can you please explain the difference between parties with standing and then non-parties?
Yes. Typically, parties with standing have some sort of direct interest in the outcome and the result of the request. They can be the applicant, they can be the next door neighbor that has pertinent information that should be expressed. It can be a traffic consultant. It cannot be somebody who's just driving down the road who does not live in the general vicinity and just happens to see the joint public hearing sign. They have to have some sort of tangible purpose for providing testimony. It's similar to if you're in a court and you're giving testimony based on if you're a subject matter expert or a direct witness versus somebody who may have seen it on the evening news.
And so those folks would be considered non-parties? They can still present as long as it's been deemed competent and non-repetitive and da-da-da-da-da.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And then there is, sorry about that, under the heading of development. It kind of reads that anyone that is constructing, erecting, or altering is then considered a developer. So would that pertain to homeowners as well? Do they then become known, is something that they do on their residential property then considered development? If they
Yes.
alter a structure?
That is correct.
Okay. So if a homeowner is going to do any construction, alteration, enlargement, renovation, repairs, or taking down of like their garage, then that's considered development and they would be considered therefore a developer. And
In accordance with 160, that's
okay,
correct.
all right. Okay. And then under 10.3.2, it's the conflict of interest statement. It kind of excludes a governing board member if for voting on any zoning amendment. It lists some conditions, but then one of those conditions is an associational relationship, which I find interesting and a little bit tricky because this is a small town and everybody kind of knows everybody.
Yes.
And so how does that get navigated?
That is more of a legal question. And maybe Sam can elaborate a little bit more about that association context in accordance with conflict of interest.
Yes, certainly. So it's in the context of the other ones there, familial, business, or other associational relationship for a rezoning. I think this one's talking about, I'm looking at it here. For talking about legislative decisions. So really it still goes back to that direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact. So as compared to the quasi-judicial where there's a broader range of things that might affect your impartiality. So in a legislative decision or rezoning, you're allowed to bring in your prior beliefs, you're allowed to bring in maybe what you ran on or what you think should happen in the town, and that can affect your decision. The only thing that shouldn't affect your decision is what's here, which is a readily identifiable, ascertainable financial interest. That's what the statute defines. The town can adopt conflict of interest rules that might go beyond that, but by statute, this now matches what 160D says. For QJ cases, it's a little more strict. Does that help?
So you can have like a peripheral relationship, but as long as what is considered associational means that you would actually be directly impacted in some way financially or whatever by participating?
Your employer, associational, right? You
Okay.
work for an engineering company, and the engineering company is the applicant on the rezoning.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Is that April 19th right? I had in mind it was the 21st for the public hearing. Did you tell me?
For what?
The joint public hearing is next Monday.
Pardon?
The joint public hearing is next Monday.
Our work session, I think, is the night.
Yeah.
I thought we were combining it with the work session on Wednesday.
Yeah.
No, the work session next Wednesday, and I think Joe's going to talk a little bit more about this, is in pertain to the future, the comprehensive land use plan and the transportation plan.
Okay, the reason I asked that, it conflicts with the Wake County Mayors Association meetings.
Okay.
So we're not taking any action on this right now? This was just, okay.
Just for information only tonight.
All right, awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, what they're asking is that we put this on the public hearing scheduled for April 19th. So that would be the motion if you're so inclined. Huh?
So we can just put it on for Monday and get it.
Yeah, that's what they're asking for, yeah.
This was just for information purpose. It's already scheduled for the meeting and
It's
is
already
noted
scheduled. Okay.
in a paper of general circulation last Friday as well as this Friday for next Monday's meeting.
I didn't understand a word you said.
Right. This was just to give you a heads up and kind of a primer, similar to how we provided information regarding the comprehensive land use plan and transportation plan at the last work session.
Well, the way it reads is that you're recommending that the Board of Commissioners place it, which would imply to me that it would be a motion from the board to do so.
Okay. I apologize for the
I
confusion.
mean, that's the way I read it, so.
Okay.
All right, well, appreciate that. Community and Economic Development, 2021-59.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. I come today with a request for a budget transfer. So in the fiscal year 2021 budget, you allocated funds for alley connectivity. So if you recall, that was bump outs and a crosswalk between the two alleys on the 100 block. Unfortunately, in some conversations with NCDOT at this time, that's not something that they'll support because of the proximity of existing stoplights and crosswalks at Horton and Vance. And so what we would like to do is take the opportunity to revisit that project, potentially rescope that project. And in the meantime, we have seen great benefit in capitalizing on public-private partnership opportunities that are presented to us. And so earlier this fiscal year, you allowed a rollover of funds that went unused from the previous budget year so that we could activate the alley on the 100 block that is currently completed, and we have several two public art pieces there. We've got bistro lighting, bistro tables, hard surfacing. So it's given us a great opportunity for small scale events and social gatherings as COVID restrictions allow. And we've gotten a lot of positive attention. So if you recall, that project was a public-private partnership with Dallas Pierce Realty and ZDAC, as well as Muter Construction. And across the street, you've probably noticed a lot of renovation going along at where the Creative Cup location is going to be. And so they're nearing the end of their construction phase, and we're really excited to have that come to our downtown. Part of their construction will include an easement for a handicap accessible ramp in the alley, which you approved previously. They're also going to have to address some drainage issues from the roof of the building, and that needs to come down into the alley and divert down the grade to the back alley. And so what we would like to do here is take this opportunity of the unused funds for alley connectivity and put it towards alley activation. So you have previously funded in this budget year some electrical infrastructure work that is currently in the works for that alley. So we would like to move up the second phase, which would have been removing the asphalt and coming back with concrete surfacing, bringing in some of your brickwork from the streetscape, similar to what we've done in the alley across the street. So you'll have a better product at the end of the day if we go into if we proceed with this as a public-private partnership, in that the drainage, the handicap ramp, the alleyway improvements, and the electrical work are all done at the same time. So the discussion before the board today is whether to transfer funds from alley connectivity project to the alley activation project through adoption of the attached ordinance.
But to be clear, you think at some future date you're going to come back and want the connectivity with future funds?
Absolutely. That's our goal, but we've got quite a bit of work to do with NCDOT. So we're going to have to rescope and continue those conversations. So it will not happen in this budget year.
Okay. All right.
What do you anticipate the cost being of completing the aspects of the alleyway activation that you just discussed?
So the cost is approximately about $27,000, give or take. We've got to get the firmed up quotes and how we're going to coordinate with the private property owner. So we're looking at about $27,000 to remove that asphalt, do some grade work, and come back with hard surfacing.
Okay. And when you're working with the building owner, which is Tom Hendrickson and not the Creative Cup,
Right.
The partnership is just that you're going to both be performing the different aspects of the alleyway activation and the accessibility ramp, et cetera, at the same time?
Correct. We're going to move at the same time, so that we will likely, kind of like what we did with the other alley, the private property owner had already contracted with Meter Construction, and so there was some scalability where we both use the same contractor. So if there is cost-saving opportunity for the town, that is absolutely something that we'll entertain if it's in our best interest.
Okay.
What's your pleasure?
I make a motion we adopt ordinance 2021-59.
Second.
Motion made and second. Other comments or discussion?
Where is any additional funds, where are those funds going to go? I mean, you say that it's going to cost $27,000, but you're asking for the transfer of $29,700.
Right. So you may have some unknown expenses that come when you are taking out asphalt and bringing something back in. So we may encounter something that we weren't expecting. There may be a pipe or some other utility. But if we don't need the funds, then we would not spend them on something unnecessarily. There's opportunity. Go ahead.
But where would the funds go then? Back into general fund?
They would either stay in that budget line for alley activation purposes.
Okay.
Or they would go back to general fund at the end of the budget year.
Okay, and how would we know which one they would go into?
So at the end of the closeout year, I'm assuming that you'll get like a budget consolidation. So you'll know if the funds were spent because the account would be zeroed out.
So it will tell us at the end of the year if it's going to be in the Parks and Rec alleyway activation line or the general fund.
Repeat your question, I'm sorry.
So how will we know, and when will we know, what line it's going to be on, whether it's the general fund or back into the alley activation line?
It'll be at the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
So it's in community and economic development. So any funds associated with alley activation would stay within that line. So at the end of this fiscal year, if there were additional projects, I'm just gonna pull one out of the hat. We've heard discussion about Wi-Fi downtown in the alley. So if that's something that we could entertain for alley activation, and that's something that could be fun, that'd be something that we talk about. But at this time, any funds that aren't spent will stay in that line. And at the end of this fiscal year, they would either be returned to general fund, or we could request a rollover of funds, which we would come before you.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Okay, other comments or discussion? Motion's on the floor. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Finance, auditor recommendation.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. We're here tonight to discuss the proposal received for the statutorily required annual audit. Some of y'all may recall our previous auditors, Joyce and Company. They've been around. We've been with them since 2003. They come and make the annual presentation in November or December meeting. So you probably recall them. We've been very happy with them for all these years, no problems whatsoever. Just thought it would be a good idea to put it out for bid, to just get a fresh perspective on it. So back in February, on the 19th of February, we sent it out to a handful of local firms, posted on our website, and put it on the NC Finance Connect listserv. Proposals were due March 12th. There were 7 proposals received. In your packet is a little spreadsheet, little chart, kind of the little score sheet that we did, grading all 7 firms on a number of criteria, just to name a few: responsiveness to the proposal, understanding of the audit to be performed, technical experience, and then entity preference, and then kind of cost criteria built into it. The average bid price of the 7 proposals was about $30,000 and change. Staff recommends Malden and Jenkins as the auditors for a 3-year contract, beginning with this current year audit, which would begin work probably mid to late May. They perform audits for other local towns, Garner and Selma. Checked with them on the references, and they spoke very highly of them. Had a good relationship so far with them, so that eased any fears I may have had. But we recommend them based on their high score and reasonable contract proposal price. Any questions?
Question?
Anybody?
Yeah, can you explain your scoring system a little bit?
Yeah.
And how you came up with the certain numbers?
Yeah, there was each category, as you see, was some of them were like 20 to 30, 15 points apiece, just based on a few questions in each category. Some of them maybe being 5 points apiece. A couple of the questions, I'll give you examples. Does the firm understand the town of Zebulon and its accounting system and records? Things like that. That they demonstrate an understanding of the audit, resources and manpower that will be required of this audit. That they have sufficient knowledge and understanding of the School of Government and the LGC.
So did you have a rubric then that you used in order to complete this?
Yes.
All right.
They have experience with local government, municipalities, smaller like us. That they have years of experience. That they have a knowledgeable staff based on the number of CPAs in the firm, things like that.
Moving forward, I'd like to see the rubric so I can have a better understanding of how these scores were arrived at, please.
Other questions? Okay, and you're recommending Maudlin and Jenkins?
Correct.
I know, I'm just re-elaborating, so what we would need is a motion from the board to appoint them for the upcoming audit.
I make a motion, we hire Malden and Jenkins LLC for our new auditors for a 3-year contract, and a contract not to exceed $25,000. Is that, do we state that?
Correct.
Okay.
That's,
Motion made and second. Other comments or discussion?
That's the price per year, locked in for 3 years?
there's a small escalation for each year, minor.
Do you know what that is, what the percentage is? That's something also that I'd like to see.
I think it was, I want to say it was 500 or 600 each year. So the 2023 is maybe 26.5 or something like that, I believe.
And if there is more than one audit, then that's an additional $2,500.
Right.
When would an instance arise that we would need to have more than one audit in a
Well,
fiscal year?
single audit is required if we expend more than 100,000 of combined federal or state assistance, or more than 500,000 state assistance. That could happen with some grants. We have North Arundel grants and Greenway.
And that would trip the need for a second audit? Okay.
Correct.
Any other comments? So we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Board appointments.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. We currently have one in-town vacancy on the planning board. 3 people have expressed interest. Mr. Robinson is here tonight to speak, and Mr. Cronk has submitted a statement. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, Mr. Roberts?
I was so excited to take this mask off here so I could breathe like you all. Well, I had this written down. I don't like to puff up myself, but I think that's probably what you guys want to know, what my experience is and why I want to be a part of this. So I'll go. I'm Josh Robinson. I'm a new resident of Zebulon. As of July, I moved to Autumn Lakes, right up the road. And I joined tonight with my intent to join the planning board as an educator, faith leader, small town, soon business owner in Zebulon. I know the importance of strategic planning towards making the goals become a reality. And Zebulon is what I like to coin the gateway, the eastern gateway to Wake. And I believe that it's important to help promote continued growth and highlight our strengths and make our town great and what a small town has to offer while continually growing smart. I've served and led on some executive boards, youth organizations, and community outreach. I'm real big on community outreach. And I'm high energy, high impact. I love the Wolf Pack, go Wolf Pack. I was talking to my guy back there, go Pack. I'm truly a person that could help continue to guide Zebulon towards just a great future, man. I love Zebulon. I'm from Elm City. I don't know if you guys know about Elm City, North Carolina. You know about Elm City?
Yeah, my grandmother. grew
All
up
right,
in
Elm City, okay. All right, praise God. All right, so we know that Elm City, 2 stoplights. And I grew up with Grandma doing some work, on the farm here and there. But Zebulon kind of felt like Elm City, just a small town vibe. So when I graduated from NC State, I decided to move to Zebulon, me and my wife, my newborn, my dog, and another newborn coming in September. And I said I wanted to be a part of something great, and I wanted to be a part of something that felt like home. So we intend to stay here forever. I know that some have said, even in this boardroom, because I love watching the meetings, my wife gets mad at me sometimes because I lay beside her in bed and watch board meetings. She's like, turn that down. But, some have said that, obviously that this Zebulon was one of the last to grow, and I agree. And I also agree that we have a great opportunity to show how to grow. And that's what I want to be a part of. We can truly be the gateway to Wake, and this means that we should set the tone for how to grow and not follow. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we have one applicant that is not here. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name.
It's,
But anyway,
Erica Sheelist.
right. And then we have one applicant that submitted a written that I'll ask Stacy to read.
Okay, these comments are submitted from Mark Kronk. To the board members, my interest in serving on the planning board is to serve my community in a capacity that helps the town of Zebulon grow successfully. I believe that our town has an opportunity to expand residential and commercial development, but must do so in a careful and considerate way. As a resident of Zebulon for almost 20 years, I believe there is a need for quality residential and commercial growth while preserving residential neighborhood character. I commend the town on the efforts to create open green space and parks and understand the importance of continuing that effort. I'm aware that Zebulon is in need for a planning board member, and I would be honored to be appointed and serve my community. Sincerely, Mark Kronk.
Okay, thank you. All right, folks, what's your pleasure?
Make a motion that we accept Joshua Robinson from the planning board.
Second.
Motion made, second. Other comments or discussion? All in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
All right. Now we go to Public Works. Weaver's Pond roadway and storm drainage acceptance.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. I come tonight before you requesting acceptance for the town to take ownership and maintenance of Weaver's Pond Phase 6. Will be accepted roadway in the length of 574 linear feet, which is Blue Iris Way. Two small sections of Greenway, 1,354 linear feet. Part of it's in Phase 6, and just about a couple hundred linear feet in Phase 3B that were built together due for economies of scale. And storm drainage of 598 linear feet. All assets constructed is consistent with the latest version of the street and storm drainage specs and special use permit 2013-03. The developer has provided a 1-year warranty plus a letter of credit in the amount of $125,176 for the completion of roadway, final overlay, stormwater pond conversion, and et cetera items. Staff recommends the resolution 2021-07 with one noted change. There's a typo, and that is my fault, and I apologize. The linear foot for storm drainage says 3,770 linear feet. It is actually 598 linear feet. So if you, we make that recommendation for approval with that one amendment.
Question?
So the 1-year warranty, does that start at the very end of completion, or it starts right now?
Starts at your approval, ma'am.
So,
Basically, if you approve tonight, it starts tonight, or tomorrow, actually.
when are they hoping to get the final completion of this project?
Oh, definitely, the speed that they're building out there, this, the final overlay, typically we have put in final overlay at around 80%. We respond as developing much faster than that, so I would estimate we ought to see final overlay within the next 6 to 9 months.
So at the time of the final overlay, we'll have
We basically complete a warranty inspection.
6 to 3 months left on the warranty?
Yes, and what we'll do is we'll do a roadway inspection and make sure any deficiencies that we are found there are corrected prior to the final overlay is placed, and then we get an additional 1-year warranty on the final overlay.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Anything else? Motion?
I move we adopt resolution 2021-07 with the correction to linear footage to 598.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made, second. Other comments or discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Joe, manager's report.
You want to do board comments, or do you want me to go first?
I'm sorry.
Did you want to do board comments first, or?
Jumped over it, didn't I? Go ahead and do yours, and I'll do
Okay.
comments after you.
All right, so quite a few things coming before you in the next few weeks, and I just wanted to draw your attention to it. So as Michael mentioned, your joint public hearing on the 19th will focus on 160D. Your work session on the 21st, that's the comprehensive plan updates to both the land use and the transportation chapters. So I've used the analogy before. Land use is like you're a farmer and you're planting crops. You're planting your residential crop and your commercial crop and your industrial crop and in some cases a multi-use crop. Wendell Falls as an example, or probably you've got an excellent chance to do that naturally with your downtown area. Got commercial surrounded by residential. The transportation is how you water that or how you bring fertilizer. Another analogy I've used, think of the land use plan as building the house, where to put the rooms, what size to make them. Transportation is the HVAC, the plumbing, the electricity to make the house livable. We will also provide you a preview of the budget. So Bobby has received some information from the League of Municipalities on what to expect from sales tax revenue, as well as franchise fees. And we also have updates from Wake County on what to expect from property tax revenue. So we'll provide that to you at your work session on the 21st. A clarification, your budget work session number 2 is Wednesday, May 19th. The date that was listed in your schedule, it was listed as Wednesday, May 18th, but it's actually the 19th. It's Wednesday, May 19th. Zebulon Historic District, you had requested the National Register Advisory Committee to table the Zebulon Historic District. They agreed with your request, and that's been tabled. We've been working feverishly behind the scenes to figure out how to circle back on that issue. As the mayor has shared with me time and time again, he's seeking inclusion with all the parties, and so I know that he's very involved in that. So we'll be sharing with you as soon as we can plans on how to circle back on how to get public information and public engagement on the Zebulon Historic District that just wasn't afforded to us earlier because of the COVID-19 restrictions. And with that, we have some budget transfers, and with that, I'll recognize Bobby Fitz, and that's the completion of the manager's report.
All right, first to answer your question about the subsequent years, it's $25,000 for year 1, $26,000 year 2, and $27,000 for year 3. I just didn't have the proposal with me when I was up here. Yes, I just need to report 3 budget transfers that were done. And finance moved $3,000 from group insurance to materials and supplies. And fire moved $5,000 from defibrillators, $2,000 of that to contract services, and $3,000 to salaries overtime. And then in special appropriations, community and economic development moved $2,500 from streetscape match to facade improvement grants. And that's all. Thank you.
All right. Now we'll double back to where I jumped off. Lynn, board comments.
Yes, I'd just like to recognize a long-standing community pillar, Deadman's Hardware. Just been around for as long as I can remember. It's kind of sad to see them going out of business, but it's always happy to retire and do some things that you want to do in life. So I just like to commend them on the years of service to our community. Also, the staff, the dashboard for the from the planning. I've been getting a lot of comments on how nice that is to go in and see what's coming into town, and it's kind of easy to navigate. So I'd like to thank the staff, and I'm appreciative of. I can't think of individual's name at the moment, Morgan?
Morgan.
Yes, for her efforts. That's all I got.
Okay. Shannon?
I have several things. First, I would like to just make sure that everybody in town is aware that the police department is currently raising funds to help support the Special Olympics. You can buy either a t-shirt or a beach towel, both of which will make you extremely fashionable in the coming months. I plan on going around and harassing just about everyone I see throughout the town to go ahead and make one of those purchases. $20 will go quite a long way to help promote and do great things with the Special Olympics. So if you have the opportunity to stop by Town Hall, or if you just see one of the officers out and about, I believe that they'll be able to help you as well. I think it's a fantastic, wonderful endeavor. And believe it or not, with the small numbers in our town right now compared to the rest in Wake County, our police department has big dreams and is hoping to fundraise more than the other municipalities in North Carolina, and I think we should help them out with that. Second, there are a couple of polls in town that I have talked to staff about, and I'm not sure that any action has been taken. I've been told that it is out of the town's jurisdiction, but I just want people to know that there are a couple of splintered poles, one of which is being held together with what looks like electrical tape on Arundel Avenue at the intersection of Gannon. So please be aware if there is bad weather or storms that there are some precarious poles until we get that situation sorted out. I would like to urge staff and my fellow commissioners to really take into consideration when we are thinking about codes and ordinances and guidelines on just how we want our downtown to be shaped and how we want things to look. There are some colors that have gone up in downtown that I consider to be quite garish, and lighting that doesn't promote a small town feel. And I hope that that can be addressed as we move forward and start to tweak things, because I really think that we are cresting into something that can be super fantastic as long as we maintain a commitment to the appearance of our town. And with that, I'd also like to say that it seems like there are some types of businesses right now that are raining down upon us like aggressive hail, and it's the same type of business over and over again. And I think that we should consider talking about that again, because we want to make sure that we're framing a downtown that embraces the historical aspect that we have and also fosters a nice, friendly feel. Thank you.
And I just think this is the season to look around Zebulon. It is, all the things are blooming. It's absolutely beautiful. So take a chance and look at.
The pots are looking great.
They are. I haven't done mine yet, but yeah, everybody's doing the pots around town, so it's looking real good.
Okay, Annie?
I'd like to say that I'm glad we had the police be walking the street, and they always come across, after we passed Whitley Gallery, they came by the railroad track and they came by my shop. And I said, that made me feel good. That let me know that they are out here working.
Okay. Larry?
Well, ditto to what all the commissioners have already said, but I would like to put a plug in for the folks that did the Blue Star Memorial out here that was recently commissioned. Did a great job. It was long overdue.
And Tommy Massey really helped him with that too, so he needs special accolades, as do they, but do that. I really don't have anything except, Shannon, I'll echo what you said about the shirts and towels. I went Friday and bought one of each.
I did the same. I found $20 in my home, and that was like, right away. Went down and got a t-shirt.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We're adjourned.
Now,